Welcome back, everyone. My name's Alex. That's Eileen. You're watching Straight to Chicane podcast, and this week we're going to be talking about the last F1 race at Abu Dhabi.
Yes, it's here.
It is. It came.
It's here.
It is.
This season came, went, and saw.
Really
and
fast.
We saw.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it has gone by in a blink of an eye. It was ended earlier than it did last year.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing, I guess, for everyone else. However,
for the drivers, yeah.
Well, not just the drivers. It's the whole team.
Well,
they get to go home, spend their whole family with their, they've been on the road all year too,
Right.
So essentially they made it 22 races in about 8 months time. Mm-hmm. Roughly, give or take their pre-testing stuff and their livery showings.
Yeah.
All
the extra for show stuff. So
yeah, so this race comes right off the back-to-back race of
Brazil, which we all were riding a high.
Which Brazil was just a really good weekend, honestly, and I
think you described it as your favorite race.
It was definitely my favorite race of the year for sure.
Favorite race or favorite race weekend?
Favorite race weekend. It had everything went really well. I mean, the sprint race was good.
We love Brazil. We love a good sprint race in Brazil.
We do. And speaking of that, we found out that now there's officially 6 sprint races that are going to be happening next year.
Yes.
I know one's at Coda.
One's at the U.S. Grand Prix. Yes.
Yeah, and where are the other ones? Do you know offhand?
Baku, Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
The Red Bull Ring.
Oh yeah. Yep.
U.S. Why am I missing one?
I don't know.
But yes, I think there's going to be 5 is what confirmed. So we went from 3 to 5.
5 confirmed, possibly 6.
I think it's 5.
Okay. Wow.
But it's interesting. So Baku, I didn't predict that was going to be one. And honestly, I didn't even think that the U.S. was in contention. I think you said Vegas would potentially be a good track.
I think I did say that.
For a sprint race, but obviously the race is on Saturday, so just the whole weekend. I feel like Vegas is going to be just a show in itself instead of having the sprint race. There's going to be so much extra stuff that
I think
happens.
they needed to do one in America, and I guess obviously the best would be at Coda.
Yeah, they love the track. So speaking of Vegas, not to totally sidebar, but they're selling $1 million packages for the race?
Yeah, it's probably pretty sweet.
$1 million. I better be able to be in the car for $1 million.
Oh, probably a hot lap.
I better be able to go out to dinner with the drivers. I better be able to hang out.
Probably a dinner with the Q&A with the drivers, for sure.
I better be able to do everything. I better have access to everything everywhere, free drinks. I mean, $1 million is a lot of money.
Yeah, but there's going to be a lot of really, really rich people there. It's going to be one of the probably richest places you can be, besides maybe even Abu Dhabi.
That there is going to be a lot of rich people, but I still cannot imagine or fathom spending $1 million for a few days.
Yeah, I mean, tickets went really, really fast, and they were still
I know.
pretty
What's up
expensive.
with that? So, and where's the general admission going to be?
I don't know. There's not going to be much.
And
probably.
Where do you walk when you're in Vegas for another event?
I'm not going to be there for that.
Okay.
You're not going to be there. There's not going to be another event. That's the only event that's going to be happening in Vegas.
Yeah, okay. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, maybe not, but you're right. Anyways, back to this weekend.
Back to Abu Dhabi.
Back to the last race. There was a lot kind of happening. Seemed like all the drivers left Brazil and flew straight to Abu Dhabi because it is, like you said, I think it's a 15-hour flight.
Yes.
So there is a huge time change to deal with.
Yes.
So they got in early for that to chill, and then Lewis arranged a nice dinner.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And they had that as well before the weekend really got going.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think this is the first time we've seen everybody since whose retirement was it last time when they were all there? I'm like, I don't even remember. I think it was 2016, 2017. Yeah. I don't even remember. Yeah. But they all have been together. It was great to see them, to be a fly on the wall. So what do you talk about as an F1 driver when you get everyone together?
Probably bring up best passes and who they think is the fastest. I don't know. I don't know.
I know.
There's probably a little bit of competition, on who they think had a better season, other than, what the really drivers in the Constructors Cup really stood for,
Yeah.
like the little probably hidden things that the drivers all had, like who had most passes, and
I'm sure,
and all the good times they had. I don't know,
I'm sure there probably was a lot of discussion. This, of course, going into the last race. The reason for the dinner was because it's Sebastian's last race weekend.
Yeah,
so
probably to highlight him.
Well, yes, but going into this weekend, we already knew it was going to be an emotional weekend.
Yeah.
We're losing Seb, we're losing Ricciardo, Latifi, and then we found out going into the weekend that Mick was not getting re-signed to Haas. So I'm sure a lot of just looking back at careers, highlighting,
Yeah,
Seb's four world championships.
Yeah, I mean, he was really dominant early in the 2010 era, for sure, for Red Bull, and he was a leader outside of Formula One. So I think a lot of people really looked up to him. We've heard even a lot of people say he's going to be back.
I don't think so.
I don't. Maybe not as a driver anymore. I think he's going to come back maybe in a few years as a team boss, like I've heard some people talk about. Or I think he can still lead the industry or this particular sport a little bit more from, not behind the wheel anymore.
I mean, here's the thing for him is he's obviously leaving because he wants to spend time with his family. So
for sure.
To come back into the sport, like, yes, I think he's going to miss it. I'm sure he's going to do some of the, country things with Mick and all that stuff. But he'd also have to still have a huge commitment to it and the travel and just everything else. His kids are definitely getting to the age where, they're growing, they're getting into stuff. They're probably starting sports. Like, there's all sorts of stuff. I do think that he's maybe going to continue to be a champion for change within the sport, since that's been a huge thing. But I just don't see him coming back. I know Lewis and Alonso are like, oh, we're going to see you back. Alonso's very sure that he's going to do the same thing as him.
I don't get that vibe either. I don't think so.
Yeah, no.
I don't think not as a driver. I don't think he's going to miss it that much. I think he's more focused on his what's next. Mm-hmm.
I agree.
But I think we might see him in a different capacity in a few years.
Yeah.
I'll put it that way. We also got confirming, like you said, Schumacher is out.
I know.
Not in. So that means
I'm conflicted on how I feel.
Nico Hulkenburg is back. Mm-hmm. And, when he first left a couple years ago, I did like him as a driver. He's okay. He's kind of like, to me, he's kind of like an Esteban Ocon.
So you liked him? Because you had like a problem with Ocon.
No, but he's that mid-level driver that really, the thing is he's been around a little bit longer and hasn't been able to capture a podium, let alone a win.
Yeah.
However, he's had a lot of really bad luck when he's been up there. He's kind of like Alex Albon. Like, there was moments when Alex Albon was going to either win the race or come in on the podium, and Lewis, or there was an accident or something happened, and Lewis did do it twice to Alex, and it caused him to not be on the podium or not win the race. Mm-hmm. And so I think he's had a lot of bad luck, and Nico has.
It could not have been that he was prioritized as number 2, right?
Well, yeah, I mean.
Okay, well,
yeah.
okay.
So yeah, I mean, I'm a little excited to see him back. However, I hate to see him taking Mick's spot, because I was really hoping that he was going to stay.
I feel like Haas kind of went full circle with their drivers. So they had 2 young drivers now. Obviously, Nikita Mazepin and his family, kind of buying and providing a lot of money.
With the money,
The drama, of course, from last year. Mick coming with the name. And then now, they brought back Magnussen, who, of course, they dropped the previous year. And they bring him back, and he did perform very well with little preparation. Getting his first
less stress on him.
Yeah, his first pole position, Haas's first pole position as a team. So I don't know if they're taking that strategy, of course, to bring back another seasoned driver. I mean, Nico's obviously been with Aston Martin as the reserve driver. He's a little bit older, and then the controversy around Mick was, of course, the amount of crashes that took place over the season. So
I think what's happening is Formula One is kind of realizing that not every young driver is really truly ready.
Right. Which
and I think they need to develop some of them more. So I think we're gonna see Mick somewhere, whether he's gonna be at Mercedes, which we keep hearing a lot of,
right?
Still learning, and we kind of saw that with Esteban Ocon a few years ago because he came in, had a really tough time, and then sat behind in the Mercedes as a reserve driver. And learned,
I think Toto's his manager too. I'm pretty sure.
He is. But yeah, so I mean, there's a lot to be learned still with Mick, and I think we will still see him. I think, I don't think he's done racing in Formula One.
I don't think so either. Yeah. I think he does, like you said. I agree. Like there needs to be a little bit more development, which is interesting going into 2023, having all these young drivers coming to the circuit. They're going to Piastri. There's a lot of hype around him,
he's young, but he's also been developing for a little while. So yeah, you're right. We are seeing still young drivers come in, and we're going to see how they fade out, or they go good. The thing about him is he's won a bunch of championships. He's done it in a professional form in Formula E. So I think
I don't think he won. He didn't win Formula E.
Oh, that was Nick
DeVries.
Nick DeVries. Yeah, Nick DeVries. So, look, we also have Nick DeVries coming in, too. So,
Which he proved himself. He raced this year. He got the points.
He's a little bit older, too. And so hopefully he's well developed. You're right. Oscar Piastri, he is a little young, but
Logan Sargent.
Very young, and he hasn't really
21.
And he hasn't really proven a whole lot. I think he's coming in.
He finished P4 and F2 this year. He did win a couple races, but, for us in the U.S., it's our first U.S. driver in many years. So
since I think 15 or 13 or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be exciting. Miami technically will be his home race. I mean, all three of them technically will be, but he's from Fort Lauderdale. So. Oh
yeah. So Florida boy. So, they wanted to have an American back here, especially Williams now sponsors their American sponsors, and then Haas being an American team. There had to be some sort of an American coming in at some point.
It's interesting. I wonder how, a lot of new fans in America, are we going to see them supporting a driver like Logan Sargent from the beginning, or are we going to continue to see, people support older drivers? Like we see, of course, a lot of Checo fans, a lot of Max fans, a lot of Lewis fans.
Yeah, I don't know.
Ferrari.
I think Logan's got a lot to prove, and he's going to have the toughest road ahead because he hasn't won. He didn't win Formula 2. He didn't go and race any other divisions after that. He's coming, like you said, from a fourth place Formula 2 season, and then coming right into this. So he kind of got lucky at the right time, and the moves happened.
Right. I think
he's good enough to be in the car. We've seen him test.
We saw him test. We saw him test a lot, so he could get his super license.
So we know he can perform in a car. We'll see how it goes race day on a Sunday.
Right. Yeah. I think the two of them definitely. Oscar. There's a lot of pressure, so I feel like the first couple races I think is going to be challenging, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
But exciting, some change. I definitely agree. I think Mick will be back. So Latifi is out. So we said bye to Latifi as well this weekend.
Although his bye was a lot more low key than Vettel's or anyone else's.
Everybody's was low key compared to Vettel. It was like we're losing 4 drivers on the grid. Vettel, we sent him off well.
Yeah. He left with some tears. His dad was there.
It was a special weekend.
It was a good weekend. They had a lot of stuff to tribute to him.
Yeah, it was great. I think he got a part of every single car. I don't know if Aston Martin gave him one, but he got a part of the Ferrari. He got a part of the Red Bull.
Yeah.
He got a true champion send-off. They did the coat of arm. They did that for him at the beginning of the race. He had a dinner with all the drivers, paid for by Lewis, might I add. What a hefty bill.
I'm sure they had a lot of wine. Maybe not. It was maybe.
I know. That's the thing, too. As an athlete, I did hear in the paddock there was a rumor that they stayed out. I think it was Fernando was like, we got home super early this morning, which going into Friday, of course, free practice. And so, were they all super tired. But he had that. Then they did the drivers with the GPDA or whatever send off where they all did the Vettel one.
Yep.
So there was a lot of special stuff. I'm not going to lie. It was a little emotional.
Yeah.
I can't lie. I was crying on the couch.
I kept looking over every now and I was like, what?
Don't try to act like you weren't getting emotional, too.
It was an emotional to see Vettel, especially he got to do some donuts at the end, and he even got to do his own farewell speech at the end. And again, I mean, compared to what Latifi got, I think we all kind of all saw Latifi's door, exiting kind of all was right on the wall. Mm-hmm. I mean, he just wasn't performing, in the same car that George Russell was performing in last year. He wasn't performing as well. Last year was a much better season for Williams than it was this year.
Yeah. Williams finished last.
Yeah. Yeah.
Surprising.
And Haas came in the 8th, which was pretty good for Haas. So they're moving up the pit lane area too. So and so
a lot of change.
A lot of change. Red Bull's moving up. I wonder if we'll see, because sometimes when that happens, the following year you see a lot of the drivers, they come into the pit lane and they miss
their exit.
They miss their pit stop. They miss their pit box and they go to a different team. That's happened over the years many times, which is kind of funny.
Mm-hmm. Why do I feel like that will happen to Ferrari? I just feel like that.
It's possible.
So
what else am I missing about happened before really the weekend got started? I think, I know there was a couple things.
I mean, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, obviously the dinner, the jokes were like, going into it, who paid for it?
Yeah,
was it Red Bull? We're still coming off the Brazil drama, so there was a lot of talk with Red Bull going into it, which there was a lot, as always over the last several years, just online hate. There was a lot. I mean, we even saw a lot of booing for Max this weekend.
Yeah.
But Red Bull actually released a statement about, Max's family was getting attacked. There was all sorts of stuff coming off Brazil. Red Bull did a really, I would say, almost over the top job of kind of talking about
their
how
PR,
they united.
Yeah.
It was like, obviously with qualifying, the after qualifying photo, both of them, posting on Instagram, which interestingly enough, they still aren't following each other. And just, of course, the media day, a lot of questions, and just a lot of drama around that. So it was interesting, the photo of the drivers at dinner. Lewis had his arm around Checo and Max was all the way in the other corner. So just, very interesting. But
we don't know the dynamic of that team.
We don't.
But they used the PR and they were just making sure that everybody knew that they were a team.
They were a team, and
this weekend they were definitely a team. This weekend they did a little bit of drafting, some slipstreaming, some stuff like that for qualifying. So they did help. There was an incident where Max's car did break down moments before they needed to go out for one of the qualifying runs. Q3 conveniently, although there was probably a true problem. The whole car.
Well, he almost didn't make it out.
Yeah,
so
and he was gonna slipstream for Perez and wasn't really able to do it. But still an interesting dynamic. We'll see kind of how the summer goes or this winter goes and come back.
I think I'm interested to see how next year goes.
Yeah.
Because they're going to start level on points and then, just kind of, it's always been there's no team orders type of thing. But, like who is the priority? And towards the beginning of the season, we'll definitely see that. So, but moving into the race weekend, we kind of expected Mercedes to be hot and popping after Brazil.
Yes and no. Yeah, we the hope was still that
Lewis was going to get a win.
Yeah, at least it was for me for sure. I think I did that pre-qualifying. I was picking him or whatever.
You weren't. You picked Perez, and I was like, "There's no way Max is going to let him win." Which
I don't know. The weekend race, honestly, for Abu Dhabi was typical Abu Dhabi other than last year.
Well, there was...
it was just a little boring. I mean, there was some good moments here and there. The mid-races had some passing. And
there was... honestly, there was an improvement in overtakes this year in Abu Dhabi, which was great.
Yeah, I think it's the new cars that are really helping with all that.
Oh, yeah.
So we've proven that this year that those cars are much better at close racing.
But we saw your standard Red Bull 1-2. This was their first qualifying 1-2 since 2018.
Yeah.
Is that crazy?
That is kind of crazy.
That's crazy to me. Mm-hmm. So then we saw Ferrari 3-4, which obviously everybody knows we're going into this weekend. Who's getting P2? Is it going to be Charles? Is it going to be Checo? Is Max going to help Checo secure what's going to happen. And then obviously, you know, it was the top 3 teams. So it was Lewis and George. So
yeah, that rounded out the top 6 with the top 3 teams, which I was a little disappointed to see Mercedes not quite being able to keep up in a quality run with those 2 other teams. It seems like Red Bull just had it in the bag right from pretty much qualifying on. They had it. They had race pace during practice. I think they didn't finish. Well, they did in practice 3. They were in the top, so they kind of saw their top run. And practice 2, Verstappen was up there too. So he was just
he was fast all weekend. Yeah. So the race, I did have a little bit of PTSD. Now, obviously, everybody knows about Abu Dhabi 2021. Now, it was not as dramatic. Honestly, it was just another race. I mean, Seb was the real winner this weekend, okay? I mean, I know Max got his 15th win of the season.
Which is a big deal. 15 wins in one season. He's alone in that record now.
Yeah, no, it's huge. It's huge. He already had broken it, so obviously had the chance to do 16, but he didn't get Brazil. But that was a really big deal, but definitely, I mean, it was undeniably Seb won driver of the day. I think 56 to 60% or something crazy.
Yeah.
And it was just special, like the whole weekend, like his qualifying runs. Like, remember Q1 when there was all that traffic and he was on his hot lap and everyone just stayed out of his way?
Yeah.
Like the 2 Alpines, I think Yuki was in there and they got over.
They let him have his run.
And he just whipped through.
Yeah.
He got into Q3. He finished in the points. So it was a really great weekend for him. But yeah, no, I'm like, bummer on Mercedes. I mean, obviously it was Lewis's 200th race start with Mercedes and he ended up retiring. So
yeah,
kind of a bummer.
Really big bummer.
I know. So his first season since he started that he has not had a race win or a pole position.
And, I did not see that coming all season. I did not. He would have got one win in,
I thought for sure.
If you would have bet, betting on, you look at those odds.
I think he would. I think he would have won in Brazil if he didn't have it. So he ended up having the damage from the incident with Max, and it was affecting his car. It was 0.2 a lap.
Yeah,
So
it's possible that he could have won that race with that.
Yeah, and then we found out George had like an issue with his car or whatever. So you just never know. But bummer, you live and you learn. I'm sure Lewis is ready. I mean, he's done. Postseason testing is over, and he never wants to see the car again.
He doesn't.
He has been very clear he does not want this car in his contract. So
I think I heard the Mercedes team say that they're going to put it in their front lobby to always remind them of the shit box that they had. Something
I think it's to Toto said they're going to put it in reception to remind them that mistakes can be made.
Yep.
You know when you like need motivation and you're like need to be scared by something?
Sure,
I think that's that.
Yeah.
Now I think the Red Bull camp is thinking different. They're going to put the RB18 just like straight up on the wall for everyone to just glory it.
Well, yeah, I think they were so dominant this year.
Oh my God.
I think
the car of the year.
I think, look, going into this race, it was all up for grabs for second place, third place, fourth, fifth. Really,
there was a lot.
There was a lot that happened because Lewis retiring at this race, he got hit, because Carlos was being aggressive at the start of the race because he was trying to maintain and get to as many points as he could because those two in the Drivers' Championship were really, really close.
Yeah.
And then same with Perez and Leclerc. Everyone kept talking about Leclerc and Perez, but I'm like, there's more. The third place is on line, fourth place is on the line. Like these.
Well, depending on how well Ferrari did. I mean, last episode we talked about this.
Yeah, Russell could have won if
Russell could have won, but Mercedes could have taken P2 in the constructors, and that was the big deal. Like being up for grabs was what was going to happen.
That matters more. I mean, more some of that personal stuff with Leclerc winning second or Perez winning second is, I mean, look, it would have. If everything would have played the cards right, it would have been a Red Bull. It would have been a Max Checo 1-2 for the season. If things would have played out a little differently in previous races, right? Because they were just dominant, like hundreds of points difference in the Constructors' Cup. you know,
I mean, they won literally what? 15
plus 16.
I think they won
17.
I think they won 17 races.
Yeah, 17 races. I think so too.
Out of 22, the other 5
were
Charles,
Ferrari,
Carlos,
and then the one Russell.
Yeah, I think they won 16 then.
Yeah.
Because Checo won in Baku. Checo won in Monaco. We know that because he like binned it on purpose. Quote unquote. Yep. But he won in Singapore because he's the king of the streets. But anyway, so Red Bull was so dominant. I mean, It definitely shouldn't have come down to the wire. But I do want to add that even if Max would have given the position back to Checo in Brazil, Checo still would not have won.
No, he would have needed to come in second.
Shouldn't say won.
He would have needed to win. He would have needed to win this race as well in order to secure, and probably get fastest lap, which Lando got surprisingly.
I know.
He was the fastest on the track.
Yes. And he had the fastest car on the track, is what he said.
Fastest car on the track.
Yes. So a little bit of deja vu. You already tipped in on that. So obviously we saw the incident with Carlos and Lewis,
which was
so who's
it was a beginning. The first lap was
second lap.
But it was clean, and it was. You know, I was like, oh man, I can't believe nobody nobody hit each other on the first part of that lap, until the backside of the track. Right. And that's where they came together. He was being very aggressive.
So did Carlos dive bomb Lewis, or did Lewis who was it in the right? So what we saw was that it was under investigation twice. First, it was under investigation for Carlos causing an incident. Then Lewis was under investigation for leaving the track and gaining an advantage. The advantage being his car is damaged.
Yeah, that's not, so. There's two ways to really look at this. So it's because it's a left and right. It's a back and forth really quick. It's essentially two turns combined. Right.
Of course.
So some people will say you got to count turn 1 or turn 3 and turn 4 together, but the way they did it was they kept the turns separated. So whoever was in the lead coming into the turn 4, which at that moment, because of the previous thing of him dive bombing, Carlos was in the lead. His front tires.
I think you're thinking of a different area.
No, I'm not.
There was not 2 turns.
There was. So anyways, the Ferrari tires were ahead going into turn 4. So essentially it was Carlos's turn. Mm-hmm. It was his line. So
okay.
I think that's why they had to give that penalty to him.
Got it.
And then
he didn't get a penalty.
I know he had to give the spot back.
The best is that they gave him 2 laps. No, the teams solved it on their own.
Well, yeah, but
technically
they didn't solve it on their own. The FIA said you need to get that spot. You need to get the spot back. And
oh my God, do you not remember?
I do.
No,
because previous races. Perez, not Perez.
Somebody help me out.
Yeah.
Somebody help me out.
Previous races, Perez was getting penalized
Do you not
for not giving the spot back. So he went ahead. He went ahead,
Alex,
and he gave the spot back.
I'm telling you that there was the message
from his team
that came through after Lewis got the message from Bono, and it said no further investigation necessary. Yeah. After they solved it, the FIA didn't tell them to do it. They did the decision on their own. Do you not remember Crofty saying that?
We'll have to go on.
Run it back.
We will have to run it back because I'm telling you, I think they FIA asked the team to give that spot back.
Irregardless. Okay, so obviously we saw it last year. Carlos came on the radio. He did the same thing that he did to Max last year. Yeah. Now, there's a very large difference between what happened last year and what happened this year.
Yeah.
Okay? Lewis took the runoff and drove across the blue painted section. He literally got back on the track immediately after he only went in the air.
He only went over the blue a little bit because he didn't really have control because his front tires were in the air. He was doing a small wheelie compared to
Alonso.
Alonso's mega wheelie.
So yeah, I mean that was, I guess, the first controversial moment. Now, during the race, not really a whole lot happened.
No.
It was who's on a one-stop and who's on a two-stop strategy.
And, you know, most people thought, you know, I'm glad there was at least a two-stop and there was a mixed strategy going on, because that was the most entertaining part of the race, was the fact that some people were going for one, some people were going for two.
Yeah, which we got that with Checo and Charles.
And then we didn't really get the good team order with Mercedes because of the hit, you know, and Lewis was kind of far back and didn't had to commit to being a one-stopper, really.
But it's interesting because Lewis was, like, totally, you know, after that whole damage thing, George was like, what's going on? He had no pace, ended up falling back. But after the first pit stop, he did say they had to fix, like, his wing. It felt like everything was forward. And then after, he was kind of on the charge until he couldn't shift.
Yeah.
So first mechanical failure of the year for Mercedes.
Yeah. Happened in the last race.
Crazy.
You know, consistency. And that's kind of why we saw George have a good season, you know, beat Lewis in the points, because their car was very consistent. You know, we saw early on Lewis was testing stuff. Mm-hmm. And that was a little bit of the reason probably why. What we also have noticed is that some of the younger guys are getting on a little bit better with these cars because of the way they drive. And some of the older guys, you know, i.e. Lewis, who's been very accustomed to what the previous car was for the whole decade, you know, it's a completely different ride, where the younger guys can kind of get into it and made a little bit more of it faster, you know, and that's where we see Max being very successful in his very fast car. And we see George have a good season. He was consistent. What, Mr. Top 5 pretty much the whole entire season?
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much. You know, up and down a little bit. Got his first win, you know. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, I think the biggest thing was that. Then I just remember being like, we need a safety car. Like, we need a safety car.
I know.
And then 2 laps later, I look up and I'm like, Latifi, no.
But it wasn't, Latifi did not cause the problem.
It wasn't Latifi's fault, but it's interesting, the same 2 drivers from 2021. Not the same turn, but it did look like the same turn.
Yeah.
Hit each other. Now, we didn't get a safety car. There was not as much controversy as last year, but...
No, they were able to get the cars moving again, and the yellow flag cleared up pretty easily from that. And that was pretty late on in the race, where it was like, almost perfect timing for a safety car.
It was, yeah.
And you were calling for it. You were all right.
I was like, I was trying to get, like, the drama, because I think it was a little dry of a race.
It was.
But, you know, I guess the biggest thing was Checo was on the charge. He did a 2-stop. Charles did a 1-stop, so his tires were dying. Was falling off from Max. Max was like, the tires are good. Tell Checo to push. Just destroy your tires, whatever. Yeah. But we saw, before Lewis retired, we saw Lewis really hold up Checo for a little bit.
Yeah, kind of played the reverse role from the previous year.
Yeah.
Checo went past going into turn 1. I'm pretty sure Lewis just let him by so that he was getting the DRS zone coming out of that. Mm-hmm. And he was able to retake and overtake and got back in and kind of, you know, just caused them, had a little fight for a little bit.
Yeah.
We also saw later on that Perez got held up by some back markers as well.
Which is funny. Sister team, Gasly.
I think that and the combination of Lewis fighting caused...
well, he only finished 1.3 seconds behind Charles, so if he wasn't held up by Lewis and then held up by Gasly, with his fresher tires, he probably would have been able to catch him. It would have been a good battle at the end there, but we didn't get it, so
almost.
We saw a Max 15th, win. We saw Charles secure P2 in the Drivers' Championship, P2 in the race, and then Ferrari finishing P2 in the Constructors.
Yeah.
We saw, obviously, Checo come home P3 in both drivers and in the race. Yeah. And we saw our customary top three drivers do donuts.
We did. And then just to say, we saw Carlos Sainz he came above Lewis. Yeah. Because Lewis DNF'd any points. So,
yeah. And
there was a lot at stake right there for the season.
I think the one thing I was like really, and I know I speak for probably the most of the F1 community, that we wanted to see the Alonso Vettel Hamilton donuts.
There's been some memes, with everyone's cars on fire, and as it happened, we saw Lewis's and Alonso's cars on fire.
It's funny because it started out with Alonso's car on fire.
Right.
And then Lewis ended up retiring. And it's funny, the meme is, wow, the 3 of these guys ended up all retiring today. But yeah, no, kind of crazy. So that was a little bit of a bummer.
Yeah, then we also got, like you said, back on the donuts, though. We got to see the top 3 guys that won. Vettel came around to the front on the main straight and did his donuts too. Then we saw Daniel Ricciardo kind of back on a different turn doing some donuts. And I'm pretty sure we saw Mick do a donut, maybe 2.
He got in trouble.
He did. He got yelled at. A lot of people saying, "Oh, he got cursed out." I don't know if he got cursed out. He definitely got told not to do them. You know, they're
like you've damaged enough cars.
They have some testing to do that was coming up. You know, and they didn't probably have enough transmissions or engines or whatever. They needed to use those components that were in that car. So yeah, they told him to shut that down pretty quickly, which was kind of funny. And he's like, oh, he was probably bummed out about that.
I know.
You know.
Yeah, especially for his last race. So, what a weekend. I mean, just some, I guess, highlighting stats. So what did I say? It's been 31 years since a Hamilton or a Schumacher have not won a race. So 31 years. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And then it's been since 2003, since you graduated, that Alonso, Vettel, or Hamilton haven't been in the top 4 in the Drivers' Championship. Yeah. Which is crazy.
Yep.
So, I don't know. I mean, obviously, we've got a lot to unpack on the year. We'll save that for a later time.
Yeah, probably.
Do you think Abu Dhabi should be the final race?
No. They pay a premium amount of money. They pay F1 an absurd amount of money to be the last race. Mm-hmm. They want to be the last race for what the reason is of what happened last year. Everything coming down to the last race, seriously. The last lap, the last everything. You know what I mean? Essentially, because this year was such a dominant year by Red Bull that there wasn't. This last race didn't really mean anything for the main, championship. Mm-hmm. It was for glory rights on who was coming in first or for second, third, fourth, and fifth. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It wasn't.
It was meaningful. And it was for Seb.
Look, my opinion is if it wants to be the last race, if it works out for the, like they said, you've mentioned it before, these guys want to have zero emissions coming out. They want to be carbon neutral. They want to do the continents the right way, the way they travel, so everything's kind of done in a really probably more economical way, more logistical way. Mm-hmm. I would say that, based upon where it is, that's probably not the best time to do this race.
So you mean we shouldn't go from Vegas to Abu Dhabi next year in 1 week?
I don't, personally, no. I think, they're going to do what they're going to do because it's Formula One, mm-hmm. and we're just fans.
Can you imagine being like, okay, so we're obviously in the U.S., so can you imagine going, so we've got like Canada, same time zone, obviously, a few hours here and there. So we've got Miami, we've got Austin, we've got Mexico City, we've got Vegas, we've got Montreal. Did I already say that? Mm-hmm. Brazil, technically.
Yeah, so, it's all in our continental area, which that gives us the same time zones. Yeah.
But I mean, that would be great because we do that. We go from Austin, we go to Mexico City, we go to Brazil. But as an American F1 fan, would you want to have 3 races in back to back? I would have no money. Okay.
No, you're right. I mean, I think there's a better way to do it. I don't know. Maybe next season's logistics is the best way to do it.
It's tough to say. I feel like they do their best, especially with the European ones. Like, I feel like we don't go back and forth.
Yeah,
too much.
I don't think. I personally, I don't think Abu Dhabi is the best track for the last race.
I think we all agree. Like, Brazil would be just like the way that every year. Like the racing in Brazil, because it's like rain.
Even maybe Vegas, because Vegas is going to be such a party.
Oh my God, I know. Well, they asked them that. They were like, how would you imagine winning a world championship here in Vegas? Can you imagine the party? And then that being the end. And then, I mean, you always bring up a good point. There's no alcohol in Abu Dhabi. So it's like, I think they're finding the alcohol. Now, I do always see them drinking like Heineken 0.0.
Yeah, someone's got to enlighten us on how this works. We've seen them drunk on social media on the boats.
Okay, did we not?
So maybe if they're on the water, they're allowed to drink?
Well, I was thinking about that because obviously Max last year was definitely lit
Yeah.
Charles was on the sidewalk. Max was on the boat. So maybe that is the rules. But do we remember Toto crowd surfing last year?
Yeah, and again,
they were definitely not on a boat.
But maybe they weren't in Abu Dhabi. I don't really know how that works, because even in Qatar, there's no. I mean, look what's happening in a different sport. Look what's happening in the World Cup right now. There was supposed to be alcohol. They moved the alcohol to a certain section. Then they banned the alcohol. You know what I mean? So like, there's a lot going on in those countries that with alcohol and sales and stuff like that. So I don't even know how any of that works.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the logistics either, but
all
definitely.
I know is I see is how small our cups of beer are and how expensive they are, and then you go see like the NFL game that happened over in Germany, and their beers are double or triple the size. So, I think we all got a little things to work on.
We do. Well, even you said Mexico City's beers were a lot bigger than they were at Coda. So, no, but I think if we were to end in Brazil, just with the way the racing is, I mean, that would be such a great way to end the season. But I do agree, now that we're going to see Vegas, and how much money they're charging for Vegas, could that potentially, outmatch Abu Dhabi?
The thing is Formula One has invested, their investors invested like $200 million into this whole entire Vegas weekend thing to happen. Mm-hmm. So, I think it's going to be very successful. I think it's going to be completely sold out. It's going to be a madhouse out there.
Oh, yeah.
I think it might reign is something as competitive as what Abu Dhabi is paying.
Yeah.
I don't know all the ins and outs. Some people should tell us more, but I know they are paying more. They're paying to be the last race. And I think they need to figure that out. I know they signed on for a few more years with them last year. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's in the contract to always be the last race as well. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would like to see it change too, for sure.
Yeah.
And going into this new season, I'm looking forward to a couple more things. Hopefully, some cars are more competitive in the front earlier
I know.
on.
Can you believe this whole year that it was only the top 3 teams on the podium, except for the one time Norris finished in Imola?
Yeah, only Norris was the only racer not in the top.
That is so
teams.
crazy to me.
It's crazy
that
this year.
That is so crazy.
I mean, you just kind of see it was a new season with new cars, and the top teams with the most budget. They were able to get in really early because this was supposed to happen during 2020, and COVID kind of pushed everything back with all the new cars. So a lot of the top teams before the cap, the salary cap, or the whatever you want to call it, came in, they were just spending all that money on R&D for all the new stuff, and so a lot of those teams were at the top. Obviously Red Bull spent the most amount of money. They were really prepared for this season.
They were extra prepared.
I mean, going into last
year. Well, they definitely had better food.
For sure.
So, yeah, there's a lot to unpack from the season. I think we should save it for the next episode for sure. But Abu Dhabi season finale of 2022. I can't believe it's over. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. I don't know. I'm going to enjoy sleeping in. I will tell you that.
A little bit.
Because it is a commitment, you guys, to be an F1 fan, because you have got, for me, he's different. He can stay off social media. I have to be up when it's happening. Yeah. I can't wake up and see, qualifying or even practice, results. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. So I got to be up 3 a.m., 5 a.m., whatever time we got to get up.
And look, I'm even, typically we get up really early here in America to watch these races. But also this year, it's also happened for Australia to get up really early. It's also happened even in the UK area for them to have to get up early for some of the races too. So, I think we all have to deal with it at some point. It is a commitment to get up early to watch these races. Good things is you get it done early. You get to get your rest of your day.
You do.
But a little bit of rest for the next couple months till we get to feed our addiction again for all of us.
It'll be here before we know it. I mean, they're going to be dropping their liveries. They're going to be doing all sorts of stuff.
There's always stuff going on. Look, I mean, we left the season going into the new year, knowing all the drivers that are going to be in the lineup for next year, which didn't happen last year. We were still waiting for Lewis to sign his contract at this moment and everything. So it was
that was the year before. It was 2020.
2020. The year before. But so it was a whole lot, different than the previous years.
I know.
So that is it for us talking about races.
Talking about Abu Dhabi.
Yeah,
and
talking
races,
about 2022. I appreciate if you guys made it this long. Thank you. Like, subscribe, comment. We want to know what you thought, of the race.
Yeah, tell me about the controversy from earlier, okay? Yeah. I think now that I'm thinking about it, I guess maybe you probably were right. So I know. We'll see. We'll see you next time.
Yeah. So all right. Until next time. Thanks, guys. See ya.